All-Around Joe podcast, where we optimize your human performance from my personal experience as an athlete, coach, and all-around self-improvement junkie. On this edition of the All-Around Joe podcast, I'm going to be talking about how to kick alcohol to the curb, or how to kick your alcohol problem to the curb. This is not necessarily for the people that are having a drink with dinner or the people that are alcoholics. This is for those people that are in between. And I sent out a question to my audience recently and asked them what they were dealing with, what their problems were, how they were struggling with being in the best shape they possibly could be. And what came back was people not knowing how to stop drinking as much alcohol as they were, and not necessarily in an alcoholic sense, but more or less in a sense that I know that I am, hanging out with my friends and I drink a few too many beers on the weekends or sometimes the weeknights, and that just does not necessarily help me out. And the truth is that I've gone through this phase of my life as well, so I have some stories that I can share with you on this topic. And I think it's really important because a lot of people don't necessarily want to go out and get wasted on the weekend. They just do it because they've got themselves into these routines. So I'm going to talk a little bit or a lot about that today, depending on how this podcast gets going down that road. But first, I want to talk about the partners that I have on this particular podcast. The first partner that I want to talk about is Inside Tracker, because they are the company that has done the most for me as far as changing my life in the last probably 10 years. What they are is a company that takes your blood. Yep, they take it and they run with it. Nope, so Inside Tracker, they are a blood testing company, but what happens is they take your blood. You go to a very local, very easy blood draw center, and it only takes about 5 or 10 minutes. They take your blood, and then once they have your blood test in about 2 to 3 days, they give you a readout of the dietary and lifestyle and supplemental choices that you should change or that you're doing really well. So for me, what happened was I thought I was doing everything right. I track all of what I'm doing so that I can make a judgment as to whether or not it makes me feel better or worse or somewhere in between. And I was doing that, and I thought I was feeling great, and I had my first Inside Tracker test and found out that I had all of these indications that were off. And I did not think that that was what was happening. But the blood tests don't lie. So I changed some things. I actually had to get rid of red meat in my diet because that was poisoning me. I didn't realize it, but the red meat was poisoning me. So once I got rid of the red meat in my diet, I started feeling more energized. And then I actually had to up my carbohydrates. So there's this huge trend right now of eating more fat and less carbohydrate. And I was going down that road. What I found, though, was that that was not serving me, even though I thought that it was. So once I upped my carbohydrates, played around a little bit with intermittent fasting, and changed the carbohydrates that I was eating, I had way more energy. And get this, and this is where you guys are probably going to be grasping onto the most, is I lost about 10 pounds of body fat in the first month. And the reason I didn't even have to test it, I just dropped fat off my body in the first month with making these changes. It was amazing. I just completely leaned out from about 203 pounds to about 193-ish. And everybody was like making comments on it like, wow, you're so much leaner. And I was like, wow, I'm actually eating more food than I was before, more carbohydrates. Couldn't believe it. And I'm not saying that this is going to be your story if you go to Inside Tracker, but what I am saying is that you don't know unless you're actually testing. And we all are going to be going down this road more and more and more, and Inside Tracker is the company that I'm using. So go to allaroundjoe.com/Inside Tracker, check out more information, or when you decide to use Inside Tracker, use the code allaroundjoe and get yourself a discount. So go to Inside Tracker, use the code allaroundjoe to get yourself a discount. You can check out my special page at allaroundjoe.com/Inside Tracker. Basically go to Inside Tracker and get some blood work done. It's super easy, hardly invasive at all. Highly recommend it. Let me know if you have any questions. The other company that I've been promoting and that's been promoting this podcast is Audible. Now, I'd really like to get more people on the Audible train, and I thought that more people would want a free audiobook because who doesn't love free stuff? and I'm a big reader. But maybe people on this podcast are not big readers, so let me know, because I will switch up what I'm promoting on this podcast if you're not a big fan of reading or listening to audiobooks. But if you are, go ahead and go over to allaroundjoe.com/audible, and you can get yourself a free audiobook on us. One of the audiobooks that I've been heavily recommending lately is the Ben Bergeron book. It is fantastic. Ben is just a great communicator, a great coach. So go to allaroundjoe.com/audible, pick up the Ben Bergeron book on us. And if you don't like the Audible giveaway, just let me know. I would love to hear about it. But let's jump back into the podcast here. How to kick your alcohol problem to the curb. And like I mentioned before, I have gone down this road. You may think, oh, Joe, he doesn't drink any alcohol. He eats perfectly. He tests everything. Blah, 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 blah. He works out really hard. I'm different than that. No, I was that person. I actually shared my whole life story on a podcast recently, and it got me thinking, maybe I need to share these things a little bit more. I have not always been this way. I grew up being a complete introvert. I would have been so scared to be looking at this video being recorded right now, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago even. So I've had to get myself out of the comfort zone in order to be able to share the things that I want to share with people that are like you, that are listening and watching this podcast. Because I think it's so important for me to basically try things out, see how they work, if they work good for me, and share them with you. And that's everything that I do. That's all that I'm doing constantly, is testing things out, seeing how they work. If they work well, I'm just sharing them with you so that hopefully you can have positive results in your life. On that note, if you want me to check anything out, just let me know. Shoot me an email, joe@allaroundjoe.com. Happy to check out anything that you think might be interesting. But on this alcohol note, I used to go down the road of, hey, on the weekend I go out with my friends, we'd go to a club or something like that, we'd go dancing. Or even a better example that I have personally is when you go to weddings, because everybody gets invited to weddings. You go to weddings, gosh, it seems like we go to about 5 weddings every summer or every year, depending on when the weddings are. And the weddings are the occasion that people go to, and they eat a whole bunch of food and they drink a whole bunch of alcohol. And I'm not against the eating of the food. A lot of times you can even go to a wedding and eat the salad and the meat and stay away from the bread products if you're really worried about that, and have a great experience, fit it into your macros, all that fun stuff. It's not a problem at all. It's the alcohol that's the problem, because almost every wedding is going to have some sort of alcohol being served. And a lot of times the alcohol is an open bar setting. So it's like all you can drink. Let's go and get all the alcohol that we can. And we are a society of, hey, if it's free, let's go and get it as much as we can. But the alcohol, don't do that. It's not it's not the thing that you want to have free. It's basically free poison for your body. But we're not going to talk necessarily about that. This podcast is for the people that know that the drinking is bad, and maybe you're doing it because you feel insecure. And that was me. Like, I would go to a wedding and everybody else is drinking alcohol. Everyone else is dancing. I'm feeling insecure and self-conscious about everyone thinking that I'm weird if I don't do those things, even if I don't want to necessarily. But for me, it wasn't that it was so much the drinking, but once people started dancing and whatnot, and you had the expectation of you're going to the wedding and you have a fun time if you dance, that was what I was going through. It was like, okay, I know that if I have a few drinks, I can go out and dance and feel okay with that. So when the alcohol started coming around, I'd be like, okay, well, I'll do that, I'll drink. And then I'd feel terrible the next day. It wasn't in line with any of my goals, How are my goals aligned with alcohol at all? They're not. And maybe, for those people that are top athletes and whatnot and they have a beer every now and again, cool, that's fine. You make that decision. Maybe you love craft beer or whatnot. That's awesome. Go for that. If you love it, I'm not going to tell you not to do it. This is for the people that know when they get together with certain friends or whatnot, or they have this routine that's not very good for you, you have too much alcohol, and it does not align with your particular goals. It keeps you from having those ripped abs. It keeps you from feeling good and performing well the next day at work, or even giving your all to your family if you're going out on a Friday or Saturday night, and the next day you know that you're not giving your all if you've had, probably more than 2 or 3 drinks. It just doesn't happen. Even, and if you think that you are, you're lying to yourself. And you were essentially me that was before doing Inside Tracker, and you thought that you were feeling really good and doing really good, but you just got in the routine of that was how I feel, and you just go down that path. You didn't know any better. So follow what I'm saying here in the podcast, and it will be interesting to see how much better you feel, how many improvements you have in your life, all this fun stuff. So let me know if that happens, because that's why I do these things. I'm doing them for you. This is not for me. This is for you. So here's what my routine was: is I would go to the weddings, I would feel insecure, I'd drink the alcohol, I'd go and I'd dance, and then I'd feel terrible the next day. It wasn't aligned with, me feeling good, looking good, performing good, any of that stuff. But I did it anyway. And then here's the interesting thing, here's my story, is that there was a wedding a few years back, and I don't remember exactly the wedding, but I was there, and I had some sort of event or something the next day. So imagine that I'm at this wedding, it's awesome, we're all dressed up, everybody's drinking. I have some sort of event the next day, like I'm supposed to go on a really long run, or it's a race or a CrossFit competition or something like that. I can't remember now what it is, but it's one of those things. It was a reason that I had that was more powerful than me feeling insecure about not drinking with everybody else. And it was an excuse. It was actually a good excuse, because when people were like, hey, do you want to drink? I'm like, no, I've got a CrossFit competition tomorrow. And then they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I didn't even put that on my list of things to talk about, but you could come up with a good excuse that people would actually understand and be able to relate to. They wouldn't be like, oh, you've got a super hard CrossFit competition or run or whatever tomorrow. You should just get wasted anyway. Most people will understand that doesn't make sense, that if you maybe you're training for an event and you have your long run on a Sunday, it doesn't make sense for you to drink because you have that commitment. A lot of people understand that. So I had this wedding, and I decided that I wasn't going to drink because I had a more powerful reason. Then when people started getting up and dancing, I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do here? And what I did is I got pulled out into the dance floor. I felt really, really uncomfortable, as you probably do, unless you're a really good dancer like my buddy Rory. But here's the interesting thing. After 5 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, I started to realize that it started to feel normal, started to feel okay to dance without being tipsy or drunk or whatever it may be, buzzed. And then I started to realize that everyone around me, they were buzzed, they were drunk, and that because I wasn't, I had more awareness, and I could tell that the people that I would have thought of, oh wow, look at those people, they're great dancers, I need to be drunk so that I can be like loose and whatnot, so that I can dance well. They actually didn't dance all that well, and not to be judgmental or whatnot, but I could probably dance better because I was aware of what I was actually doing. I could keep the beat, I could see what how I was moving and whatnot. And then once I got past the feeling of feeling stupid about it, and I got used to it, then it was no big deal, and it was actually really fun. And I ended up dancing the whole night without drinking any alcohol, and that turned into essentially a workout in and of itself. So ever since that one wedding, maybe it might have been 3 years ago, I have not had any alcohol at a wedding or event. I'm not even sure if I've had any alcohol, period. I might have had a glass of wine at some occasion, but I don't know. It's pretty interesting. So just know that I've gone down this path and I've tried it out. I actually stumbled onto this one. This one was not necessarily intentional. But now I had to go to a wedding. I just went to one last Saturday and ate wonderful food. It was awesome. Actually had a really hard workout in the morning, so I felt good about eating all of the food. And then when dancing came around, I danced with everybody else pretty much the whole night, and I didn't drink at all, and everyone else did. So I felt sleep deprived the next day, which wasn't awesome because we were out until, after 12, after midnight. But I did not have any of that alcohol that was going to be converted to fat in my system. And I did not have a hangover. I didn't poison my body at all. I slept better than every other one of those people because, the alcohol disrupts your sleep, whether you think so or not. And then I recovered faster. So I was able to get back to it faster. And I had just as good a time, if maybe not better, because I remember all of it. So there's all of these positive things that come about it. So I just want to emphasize that I have gone through this and you can go through it as well. Okay? And what I want to talk about, though, is there's a couple of things that you can focus on. All right? We put way too much into what other people are thinking about us. Way too much. Okay? And here's the thing. I was that person. I felt way uncomfortable because I thought that people were judging me based off of not drinking or not dancing or whatever it may be. But what it turned out was that now that I'm in this zone, nobody even asks me if I want to drink. Nobody even questions it. And nobody has ever said, wow, you're a really bad dancer. Nah. Most people just appreciate the fact that you get out there and move. And if they're drunk, they can't tell anyway. So it doesn't matter, and you can have a great time, and chances are you're going to pick up dance moves faster if you're not drunk. So it's one of those things where the more you do it, the easier it gets, and then you can start, looking like Michael Jackson on the dance floor. I don't know, but it's really something that is silly when we think about it. It really is. And another interesting thing that you can try is, if you want to get over this, try doing Facebook Live or Instagram Live. Because if you're live on video, you get people coming at you, watching you right then, making mistakes, whatever it may be, unless you're, professional newscaster or whatever. You're probably going to be making mistakes right in front of people and you can't do anything about it. But if you do it more and more and more and more, you get better and better at it, and you'll realize that people actually appreciate you jumping out in front of them like that and being the person that's just going to throw themselves out there. It's really cool. I think that we have this ability to throw ourselves out there. And it's not that I don't think that you should care what people think necessarily. It's like, I totally care what you guys think because I want to help you to get better at whatever you're doing. So I want people to think of me positively. But at the same time, if I'm so self-conscious about what you're thinking that I cannot do things like do this podcast or this video or whatnot, then it's not going to help me and it's not going to help you. So those things that are positive that you're being held back with because of being self-conscious, those need to be done. You need to push yourself into that light. You need to dance when you're not drunk. You need to, you can try a Facebook Live video if you have something cool to share with people. Give it a shot. All right. The other thing is that if you really want to change something about yourself or your habits or your routines, change who you spend your time with, okay? And I'm going to post this Gary Vee video in the show notes at allaroundjoe.com/145. That's allaroundjoe.com/145. So Gary Vee did this amazing video the other day that just brought home for me about how it is so real that the 5 people that you spend the most time around are the biggest influencers on you. Like, it's a real thing. Like, it's super, super important. He talks about like all these other things, and then he's like, this one is real, guys. And I've been preaching it for a long time because I know that it's changed my life. And something that you can do is you can think about, are the people that you are actually hanging around the people that you want to be like? Because if you hang around 5 people the most in your life and they are bringing you up, they are the people that are better than you or that you want to be like, you will get better. You will start to talk like them. You'll start to act like them. You'll start to do things like them. That's why I make so much content here, because if I can help anybody to move up to my level, that's what I want to be doing, okay? And I'm trying to hang out with people that are better than me constantly. And here's a cool thing. If you feel like you don't have any of those people around you in your life, you can get those people into your life by listening to them, like what I'm just talking about here, by reading their books, by consuming their podcasts, their videos, all of that stuff. So you find these people, like for me, Tony Robbins has always been a big one. I'm probably not going to be hanging out with Tony Robbins. Hopefully I am. I hope so. That'd be great. If Tony gets this video in front of him and he says, hey, I want to hang out with this guy Joe, I would love it. I would freaking fly to wherever he's at. I would hang out with him as much as I possibly could. But if I can't, I can listen to his audio all the time, whenever I have free time, in the car. Get rid of that music. Listen to something from somebody that you want to be like. All right, so I can listen to him. I can watch him on video. I can go to his events. I can do as much as I can to ingrain myself to be like Tony Robbins or whoever else you want to look up to. So if you do that, you'll find that you actually start talking like those people, that you start doing the things that those people would be doing. I highly recommend that you get yourself involved with that you make that a habit for yourself, all right? And I know it's hard to kick people to the curb if they are not good influences on you, but at some point, if you want to improve yourself, just stop hanging out with them as much. Really. I know it's hard, especially if they're family members or even spouses, that, then you're going to have to influence those people to help get them to change. So maybe you bring them to places where you're going to hang out with people that are like you both want to become. All right? And I understand it's not going to be easy, but who cares if it's easy? Easy is just something that people decide that they want their life to be easy, but fuck that. Make it hard. Do the hard things so that you'll have more benefits. That's what I say. And the hard things, just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not fun. Hard things can be fun. Seriously. It doesn't have to be easy for it to be fun. So think about that. Think a lot more, all right? The next point is that it gets easier the more you do it. And I kind of already touched upon this, but the more that you do something, the easier it gets. So in this case, if you're trying to not drink as much, you know that it's not good for you, it's not aligned with your actual goals, how you want to feel, any of that stuff, the more that you don't do it, the easier it gets. And a lot of times people think of like, oh, the more that I play an instrument, the easier it gets. The more I play a sport, the easier it gets. The more that I do public speaking, the easier it gets. They think about those things and they understand them, they're tangible, but they don't think about things like this, like, oh, the more that I don't drink at a wedding, or that I tell people that, no, I don't need a drink, I'll just have water. The more that you do that, the easier it gets. So if every time that somebody asks what you want to drink, if you say, hell, I'm just going to have a water, at the 10th or 12th time, or whatever time it is for you, wherever your brain clicks in, it becomes super easy and it becomes a habit that you don't even consider the other option. And if you decide at some point it's your birthday or whatnot and you're like, I'm going to have some drinks, it is not the norm, so that it's so easy to jump back into what is the norm. Do you get it? You need to associate those things the same way that you do as like, oh, I'm going to go and kick the soccer ball around, and I know that if I do that every single day, I'm going to get better at it. If every single time that someone asks you want to drink, you'd be like, nah, I'm really into this water right now. Water's great. I heard it's really good for you. It makes it feel awesome. Then you say that every single time, you're going to get into the routine of doing that, and it gets easier and easier and easier, and the next thing you know, you've done it, you've become what I have, and it's just like so easy, and people don't even ask you if you want to drink. I mean, I find it weird when I'm going to a restaurant and someone's like, hey, would you like anything, our beer on tap or whatever. I'm like, why are you even asking me this? I don't get it. Because you're friends with the people you hang around, or even people that I find that I don't hang around that often. I might see like once a year or something like that. They just know. They don't even ask me. It's like crazy. They just get it, and it becomes super easy. The more you do it, the easier it becomes. When you go out with your friends to a wedding, don't drink and dance all night is like having a great workout. And I mentioned this earlier as well. You can totally flip this one on its head, because if you go out and you eat tons of food, you probably didn't work out earlier in the day, you get wasted, you dance all night. The one thing that was good for you about that equation was that you probably danced and hopefully you burned off some of that alcohol before it could turn into fat. Although if you just loaded your body with food and then you gave alcohol the preference for digestion, which is alcohol has to be digested first, even if you have a stomach full of food. So like if you eat a steak and some potatoes and whatnot, and then you drink your champagne, the steak and potatoes stop digesting and the alcohol digests first. So unless you're burning off a shit ton of calories when you're doing all of that dancing, hopefully you're doing all the squats and stuff on the dance floor, doing the worm, that fun stuff, because otherwise there's going to be so many calories that you're getting from alcohol and from the food, and the alcohol takes priority to digest, that you are probably going to put on body fat. Sorry. But if you decide not to drink and you still go out and dance and you have a great time and you do the worm and you get, low, you're going to flip that on its head, and the food is going to be triggering actually positive muscular changes, filling up your glycogen stores in your muscles, not storing fat because that alcohol is messing with your system. So you get to have great food, you get to have a great workout, and you get to have none of the negative effects of the alcohol that cascade into a bunch of negative effects, and it's all around good stuff. Get it? It's awesome. So try that out, and like I said, the more that you do it, the easier it's gonna get. And it's such a better lifestyle. I mean, like I said, I went to a wedding last Saturday. It was fantastic. Didn't even think about drinking. Had a great time dancing. Get out on the dance floor. Maybe looked like an idiot. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm getting better at it. I don't even know. Who cares? I had a great time. I didn't care about what people thought. And I was recovered and feeling great the next day. There you go. So the takeaways that I want to have for you from this podcast, there's only 2 of them. Only 2 major takeaways. Look at who you're hanging around with. Do they model who you want to be? Like I mentioned, I dwelled on this big before. Find people that you want to be like. Start listening to their podcast. If they don't have a podcast, start reading their books. If they don't have books, start following them on social media, seeing what they're up to. It's really that easy. So that was number 1. Number 2, are your routines helping you or hurting you? Okay, so I know that I talk about routines and habits a lot with all kinds of stuff. And the more that you get into this, the more that you realize that everything is all the same and it starts to blend together and be the same thing. So if I want to change a habit for working out or eating right, or, going and running a marathon, or becoming a better swimmer or speaker or playing an instrument or whatnot, it's the habits that you make on a regular basis. Becoming a better writer, you just need to do it more often. And then there is some point at you need some coaching or whatnot, but you can get that really easily by who you hang around, which I already talked about. But for not drinking is the same thing, and people just don't associate it. So the more that you do these things, the easier they're going to get. It is just how it is. So give it a shot. Trust me, it will get easier. You will feel better. You will feel more healthy. And if you're in a group of friends that is actually going out and not being a good influence for you, and you cannot get out of that, you just don't have the willpower to jump out of that group of friends, you can be the leader for them, and you can be the person that goes out and has a great time and looks good and feels good, because you're going to start, having those abs pop out because you're not drinking the alcohol all the time, and you're still going out and dancing, you're getting a good workout, and they're getting themselves, the skinny fat look, and it's not good for them. And then they're going to start asking what you're doing, is they're going to start following your lead, and you're going to be the leader of the group, and then it's going to be all great. So I hope that you guys try this out. Let me know if you do. I hope this podcast was beneficial for you. This is just how my journey worked out and how I've seen it work out for other people, and how you can improve your life. So like I mentioned earlier, make sure that you check out Inside Tracker if you want to optimize your life. You can do so at insidetracker.com/allaroundjoe and use the code allaroundjoe to get yourself a discount. Also, Audible, if you want a free audiobook, go to allaroundjoe.com/audible. Highly recommend reading. It's good for you. If you want to be like somebody else, go get an audiobook, listen to them, become like them. It's awesome stuff. So show notes are at allaroundjoe.com/145. And I appreciate every single comment that I have on those blog posts and every review that I get. So I'm trying to get myself up to 200 reviews on iTunes. Every 5-star review that I get helps me to get this message out to more people. So I highly really, really appreciate you guys when you do that. So thank you. And let me know if you need anything at any time. The All Around Joe podcast, where we optimize your human performance from my personal experience as an athlete, coach, and all-around self-improvement junkie. I will see you on the next podcast.